Ever feel like you're speaking a different language when trying to explain your vision to a graphic designer? As marketers, we constantly have to bring creative ideas to life. Our job is to take a campaign idea that was discussed in a meeting or a brainstorm session and then translate it into things like landing pages or ads. And we're expected to collaborate seamlessly with creative directors, designers, and video editors to make it all happen. But here's the issue. Many of us don't come from design backgrounds, and without formal design training, this can make it challenging to effectively communicate our vision. I've gone through this myself. I've owned several agencies in my career, and these agencies have focused on video production, animation, podcasting, writing, and broader marketing services. But my undergraduate degree was in computer information systems. I was a programmer when I started out, and I had to fail a lot before I finally got comfortable collaborating with designers. I had to go through a lot of off-brand designs and projects that missed the mark until I developed a better system myself. So in this episode, I'll show you how I bridge the gap between what's in my head as a marketer and what this means for a designer. I'll cover 3 key components to a visual creative brief and outline how I use a tool called Miro to bring it all together and speak a common language with a graphic designer. Translating marketing ideas into visual concepts is hard. Often when working with designers, they don't have the same context as you. They weren't a part of the marketing strategy and don't have access to all of the background information. When you're creating a visual asset, like a landing page or a display ad, you need to use more than just words to describe what you want. When the output is visual, it helps to have visual inputs. If you don't effectively describe what's in your head from a visual perspective, your designer is really just taking a shot in the dark. So let's think through this scenario for a second. You have a great idea for a landing page that you believe will help your ad campaigns perform better. But when you get the first draft from your designer, it looks nothing like what you had in mind. Components are out of place, the color combination seems off, or doesn't jive with the presentation you had in mind. Maybe the designer leaned heavily into illustrations versus photography. You get the idea. Or maybe you're working on a paid ad campaign, and the final ads just don't capture the message you want to get across to prospects. The thing is, it's not just disappointing, it's costly in terms of time and resources. And these types of revisions push out your start dates for campaigns or other projects. That's where visual briefs come in. They're a key ingredient for streamlining your creative process and achieving the results that you want. Think of a visual brief as a roadmap that guides your design team from the initial concept to creation. It's not just about what you want, it's about showing them what you mean. When I use a visual brief, I speak the same language as a designer. This leads to fewer revisions, faster turnaround times, and really, ultimately, creative designs that align with my original vision. Now that you understand why I believe visual briefs are so important, I want to talk through how I build them using Miro. Miro is an online collaborative whiteboard platform that enables teams to visualize ideas, plan projects, and really innovate together in real time. Miro is what we use as a team across all of our agencies, which is Spoke, Motion, and New North. And if you don't want to use Miro, you can still use a tool like Google Slides or FigJam, which is a part of the Figma design suite. When it comes to a visual creative brief, I like to think of it as really a combination of 3 things. There's a written brief, there are mood boards, and gray box designs. After you have these 3 things in place in a tool like Miro, you're ready to start a collaboration with a designer. Even though this video episode is all about visual communication, I believe every great visual brief actually starts with a solid written foundation. A written brief includes things like campaign or project objective, target audience or ideal customer profile, the key message or big idea, the call to action, the ad format, file specifications, budget, and timeline. In Miro, I create a new text box, as you can see over here on the left. And in this text box, this is where I actually document the creative brief itself. So even though I'm using a tool like Miro, I still go ahead and put a component over here that is always available to the designer that we're working with. So as you can see here, I've got things like the overarching campaign or project objective, which in this case, we are redesigning a website. I included our very own website design project where we redesigned spokeagency.io. I make sure to include elements of the target audience. I always like to document the big idea that we're getting across. And the reason for this is I like to have a message that for the designer that says, above all else, this is really what we're trying to convey, with whether that's a video ad, a landing page, or an entire website redesign project. I want to say that the big thing that we want to get across. In addition to that, I like to include the call to action in the brief. What next step do we want the audience to take? And where do we want them to go from here? What's the desired action for this project? So even though it's a visual design, we want to make sure that it is enticing or taking people to the next logical step. In addition to that, we also include the format, file specifications that are very important. If you're doing a square or a portrait-based design, you want to make sure that you articulate that up front, and so that the designer's not going down a completely different layout than what you envision for the final deliverable that you have. And then also you can include timeline or even a link out to the actual project plan that you have in place if your team is actually working in the same project management system. Now comes the fun part, mood boards. These are visual collages that capture the look, feel, and style that you're aiming for. With mood boards, I include all types of assets to show what's in my head as a marketer. This can include color palettes, website components, illustrations, navigation menus, and even videos. And I think this is where Miro actually shines. With Miro, you can simply paste any image from your clipboard or take screenshots and throw them on the canvas. And a link to a YouTube video allows you to even embed a video on the canvas too. So as we could see in this situation, we recently redesigned our Motion website, which is an agency that I own. And this is the mood board process. So a big piece of what I wanted to do in this situation is pull slices and components of other websites. Examples that I liked that include the same color palette, the same type of layout, or the look and feel that I'm going for. And this, I feel, is really important to a designer to have them draw a connection between a word that we use, like maybe if we say we want something to feel modern or clean, if we actually show them examples of modern or clean, then they'll immediately understand what we're talking about. So let me zoom into this case here. You can see I mentioned I love how this navigation sits on top of the hero section of the website. So I love the dimensionality that's included. It looks like there's some layers involved, some space. Things are kind of laying on top of each other. And that's a feeling that I was going for our website. So rather than just saying, have the navigation sit on top of the hero, actually show an example of what I mean there. Another big thing is iconography. A lot of times you'll hear a marketer say, I want simple icons, but we don't really know what that means. Are there heavy lines? Are there thin lines? Are they sophisticated, complex? What does that mean? And so what I have here is these simple icons. So when I say the word simple, I'm actually showing an example of what simple means. Another thing too is I wanted to go with a darker color palette for our new website. And so when you say darker, it's important to convey what that means. So I included a couple of examples here, but then I also mentioned I do like to show some contrast. And so there are some lighter options as well. And so I liked how this particular example did that. And I make sure to draw an arrow and to call that out. Another thing too is the use of illustrations and how you want certain things to get conveyed in a design. And so I loved how we had these somewhat abstract line art type illustrations that are used. And that's where I talked about, I like this style and I want to emulate that within our own brand guidelines. And then I talk about how I would like some of these animations to be used. And so this is where I actually include the place on the web, and this could be a video or a website, and this is where you actually include a link out to that. So this is a clickable link, and this is where I actually believe Miro is a great example of how we can use this tool to really work with designers. Here's another example of the Spoke website, and you can see that I've used a similar process here where I talk about the glow effect behind the content areas here. I love the font colors and graphics, and I'm calling those out in exactly how I envision that for our new design. And then once again, I mentioned I don't want a 100% dark website, and I do like how there are white and light content areas mixed in within the design style there. And some other things here too. I even call out the layout or the specifications. So one of the things in the design, which is really a constraint for the designer, is I wanted a maximum width of 1200 pixels. So I include an example of what that looks like in an existing website design, which is Webflow that I pulled out there. So these are all examples of how a mood board can really provide some very good context for your designer before they go off and actually work on your own designs. And I feel like this is the way to really speak that common language. You're essentially saying, here's what it means when I say simple. Here's what it means when I say dark. Here's what I mean when I say modern. You're actually translating it using a visual tool like a mood board. The final step to a visual creative brief involves creating gray box designs, or wireframes. These are like the skeleton of your design. They show layout and content placement without the distraction of colors or final imagery. Typically, wireframes or gray box designs are used for website projects, but I like to use them for illustrations or even display ads as well. Let's take a look at what that looks like here. In this scenario, I have some visual examples. So this is what I would consider our mood board, and then I'm translating that into wireframes of image ads. So in this situation, here's an example of an ad doing for motion. We have the headline up top, and then we have individual components that we're layering in here. But this is giving the designer an idea of what the layout could look and feel like. The weighting of certain things, the weighting of the logo, and the headline that we're going for. But it's still giving them freedom as to actually how to translate this into their own designs. So here's another example down here, and you'll see where I add notes to the gray box design. So I'm actually talking about, in this situation, use Motion's homepage as the primary inspiration for this ad design. So I'm demonstrating where I would like some of those similar components that exist on the homepage, and then where that fits in the context of the ad itself. And then I'm also demonstrating, the key elements that I want to get across from a text perspective. So once again, the designer gets an understanding of the mood board and the look and feel that I'm going for, but then also they're able to see how I'm kind of drafting what that should feel like in the ad itself. So it's giving them some parameters to work with. And then down here is another example where we want to perhaps have an option of the ad that shifts the design elements off a little bit, and then we include some more text content because this is what we want to convey in the ad itself. And this is where we're able to get some variations on ads, and this is where you're able to test different creative along the way. So here, this is really a good example of how to use those wireframes for display ads. Now the same thing, I'll jump back here to the website we were creating. This is the mood board for Spoke website. And then you can see how the homepage, for example, the wireframe is drafted. And then this is where I'm actually adding additional notes and sample copy within the wireframe. And I described the hero message up top. I describe the client logo area and how we want this to animate. Here's a component that we're creating. And this is actually where this piece will be animated and rotate through a specific list. And I actually included a link out to an actual website where this component exists. So this not only is useful for your designer when they're creating the content, but it's also ultimately helpful for your developer when they are looking to translate those designs. And then another example, if we go back to another mood board that we have, we can see here where we go to Motion's website. And once again, I'm drawing a connection to a component. So there's a component on HubSpot that I liked, and I thought it was great how they included some information in a linear way, but then we're able to really reinforce that with designs underneath. As you can see here, I'm actually talking about what should go in those types of illustrations and the information that I want to convey within this one large illustration. And I think this is very important for designers, that they get some of the context here, because it's so hard to say, yeah, just do a very complex illustration or create an illustration that has all these ideas rolled into it. But if your designer doesn't really know all the different elements that you want to include, it's very hard to have a compelling design put together without that information. Once you've completed all three steps, your Miro board becomes a comprehensive visual brief. It has the written details, the visual inspiration, and the structural layout all in one place. You can easily share this board with your design team, allowing for real-time collaboration and feedback. So this means no more long email threads or confusing conference calls. I found that when I use this process, it really gets designs to a much better place. And I get to focus on refinements instead of starting over from scratch each time. I've had a lot of failed design projects and project delays during my career. But when I use visual creative briefs, it helps me create faster and build momentum with campaigns versus just spinning my wheels. So hopefully this process can help you with your next design project.